Okay. Good morning, everyone. I would like to welcome you to Alcorn State University. I call this May meeting of Board of Trustees to order. Dr. Cook, thank you for the hospitality of yourself and your staff, and thank you for the fantastic meal we were provided last night. I think we're all grateful to be here on this beautiful campus. For those who have not been here before, it's something to behold down here in South Mississippi, so thank you for hosting us this morning. And I also like to let you know that Trustee Rader and Trustee Clark are joining us virtually today. Guys, can you hear us?
Yes.
Okay. Well, we'll keep working on that then. If we would, trustees and IEOs, remember to speak into your microphones clearly so that everyone can hear you, particularly our people that are online joining us. Trustee Arrington, if you would, get us started with the invocation for this meeting.
Sure. Let us pray. Dear Heavenly Father, thank you for the opportunity to be here today on behalf of our state's institutions of higher learning. Please give us wisdom as we consider the issues before us today. Help us to make our decisions with the best interest of our universities and our students and the state of Mississippi. Keep us all safe as we travel to various places today. In Jesus' name we pray. Amen.
Amen. We have two IEOs who are unable to join us today. Sitting in for President Nora Miller is, she's here. Okay. We will keep it moving then. One IEO is not able to join us today, and Dr. Lance Nail is the Provost and Senior Vice President for Academic Affairs at USM. He's filling in for Dr. Paul, so welcome, Dr. Nail. Has everyone reviewed the minutes for April 16th? And if so, is there a motion to approve those minutes? We got a second? Okay, any discussion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. We're going to try this again. Trustee Rader?
Aye.
Trustee Clark?
Aye.
Thank you, sir. The motion passes. Next, we will have Dr. Cook come to the podium and give us some highlights on the good work being done here at Alcorn State University.
Good morning, Chairman, member of the Boards of Trustees, Commissioner Rankins, board staff, colleagues, distinguished guests, faculty, staff, students, alumni, and friends of Alcorn State University. I welcome you to this place where the air is cleaner, the grass is greener, and the water is just a little bit sweeter. To our first time and returning campus visitors, I would like to show a 4-minute video. This video you're about to see captures more than the beauty of our campus grounds and facilities. It reflects the spirit, tradition, pride, and purpose that define our university community. Within these images are the stories of generations of students, faculty, staff, alumni, and supporters who have helped shape this rich legacy of this institution. Please enjoy the presentation.
Rising from the embers of the Civil War and less than 10 years after the enactment of the first Morrill Act, Mississippi's Reconstruction Legislature birthed Alcorn University, its first land-grant institution, on May 13, 1871. Chartered as a beacon of opportunity and with no existing model to follow, our founding leaders, faculty, and students carved their own paths, sparked by a driving aspiration and a bold vision of what Alcorn would become. The university's evolution was fast and ambitious. In just 7 years, the institution would be renamed Alcorn A&M College, and with it, the crowning as America's oldest historically black land-grant university. And within its first decade, the first woman earned an Alcorn degree, becoming the first black woman in the U.S. to graduate from a state-supported college. The campus flourished at an exponential rate, expanding to 8 times its initial size. And academic programs blossomed as Alcorn grew to include 5 academic schools, offering degrees spanning more than 50 disciplines with an intentional global reach. Just over a century and a quarter after its founding, a sitting U.S. president visited our school to remind graduates that not only is the grass greener, the air cleaner, the water sweeter, but this campus is just a little bit closer to heaven. Alcorn has always attracted extraordinary talent. The first black U.S. Senator, Hiram Revels, was also our first president, a job that Frederick Douglass once called himself unqualified to hold. Across the generations, Alcornites have included trailblazers in countless fields, civil rights icons, Medgar and Murray Bunkers, Pulitzer Prize-winning author Alex Haley, and professional football legend Steve McNair. Our students have led the Mississippi NAACP, graced the stage of the Miss America pageant, received an Oscar nomination, and won an Olympic gold medal. Over and over, members of our Alcorn family have transcended expectations and dared to make indelible marks on the world. Many universities talk about family. At Alcorn, it is who we are and who we have been for 150 years. We are more than family. Legions of Alcornites have beckoned from beneath the shade of giant trees to become those who dare to aspire to more. What draws us together? We unite around time-honored traditions, winning sports teams, the sounds of dynamite, time together in the splendid isolation of the yard, the academic resort. We literally and metaphorically plant seeds that help the world grow stronger communities. And we dream big, always relying on this brave family to lift us higher. From its earliest days, Alcorn stood as a bright beacon of opportunity for those who dared to be great, dared to be bold, and dared to be Alcorn. The spark that lit our campus on May 13th, 1871 is still burning today, illuminating the path for those who are ready to do more, be more, give more. And after 150 years, we're just getting started.
On May the 13th, 2026, we celebrate the anniversary of 155 years of excellence, resilience, transformational impact as America's first public land-grant HBCU, and honor the legacy of those who came before us while reaffirming our commitment to those who will follow at our beloved university. Alcorn State has partnered with Getty Images. Through this partnership, we can now digitize our historical photos, videos, as well as license them. We are proud to celebrate this impactful partnership with NVIDIA, which has helped us bring innovations to life through the creation of our new DGX Spark Desktop Supercomputer Lab. This collaboration represents more than technology. It represents opportunity, research advancement, workforce development, and our shared commitment preparing the next generation of leaders in AI, data science, and emerging technicians. Alcorn serves as a powerful economic engine for our community and surrounding areas of Southwest Mississippi. Beyond providing educational opportunities, the university creates jobs, support local business, attract visitors, stimulate investments, and contribution to the overall growth of this region. The total added to Mississippi economic impact in this area, $187.4 million. Jobs supported statewide, 3,109. Return to society per $1 investment is $3.30. Return to student per $1 investment is $5.30. That's give us about 19.8% annual rate on return. Return to taxpayers per $1 investment is $1.50. Alcorn will continue to be a driven force for progress, innovation, and long-term economic impact. From the Goya Studies Fiscal Year 2024 Sightline Benchmark, it lists our top 10 highest TLC needed buildings, and that range from the David Whitney Complex, J.D. Board Library, the Walter Washington Administration Building, K.L. Simmons Industrial Technology Building, the Graduate Business Building, Nursing School Resident Hall, School of Nursing Building, Math and Science Building, Ewens Power, and the Biotech Building. We are pleased to announce that renovations of 9 of the 10 buildings have or will begin soon as approved. Campus projects totaling over $63.6 million. We're looking forward to the positive impact these renovations will have on our community for the years to come. Carnegie Classification of Institutional Higher Learning. On March the 12th, 2026, the Carnegie Foundation and the American Council on Education has released the official seals reflecting Alcorn State University 2025 Carnegie Classification. Alcorn has been recognized as both an opportunity college and university and a research college and university. Our faculty and staff are reflected in the dedication, professionalism, and commitment demonstrated each day across the university. To name a few, Dr. Bianca Jackson, the Voice Area Coordinator and Associate Professor of Music, recognized as Fulbright Scholar. Mr. Jerry Howard, who's present today, Director of User Services for the ASU Center for Information Technology Service, recently became the first Alcorn staff to complete the Harvard University IT Academic Pilot Program. And to round it off, who's present today, Dr. Marcus Ward, Senior Vice President for Institutional Advancement at Alcorn and the Executive Director of the ASU Foundation Incorporated, was named HBCU Advancement Leader of the Year at the 15th HBCU Symposium. Students remain the foundation of everything we do. On the picture above, you will see Second Lieutenant Officer Pullen, Coleman, Jackson, Lee, Lewis, and Flagg, who was commissioned into United States Army on May the 8th, 2026, and Mr. Nigel Caesar received the Outstanding Student Award at the spring commencement of 2026. Alumni footprint. The top states as of July of 2025, Mississippi, 17,043, Louisiana, 1,134, Texas, 1,020. From the surrounding areas of Southwest Mississippi, you have Adams County, 2,342, Jefferson County, the big city where I'm from, 1,433, Vicksburg Ward County, 1,256, Claiborne County, 981, in the Jackson-Hines County area, 1,856. We honor 86 members of the class of 1976, our golden anniversary class. For many years at Alcorn State University, we have recognized alumni during commencement who have graduated from Alcorn 50 years ago. This class represents a generation of trailblazers, different makers, and leaders. When we talk about this golden class of 1976, we are talking about a class filled with excellence, influence, wisdom, and history, ranging from professional sports, healthcare, business, education, armed forces, public service, faith, and family. We also celebrate something truly special. 7 couples from this class participated in commencement and still happily married. It's clear during those years, love must have truly been in the air. As you conclude your campus visit, we hope you gain a deep appreciation for the history, culture, and vision that continue to make our university a place of opportunity, innovation, and transformation. I want to thank our university personnel for preparing this facility and assisting with this IHL visit. Thank you, safe travels, and remember, as always, Alcorn.
Thank you, Dr. Next, we'll have Dr. Pierce, if you would, introduce our next presenters.
Good morning. We have Dr. Brian Prescott and Dr. Sarah Pingle from NCHIMS to give a presentation to you this morning. Several of you have had the opportunity to hear from them yesterday. This will be similar to that. In terms of where we are in the process, they will be delivering a recommendation to you for allocation methodology next month. The first opportunity that you will have as a board to take action on anything that they recommend, if you choose to do that, will be at the request to the legislature, which is done at the June meeting each year. So as you hear their presentation, you might think about, are there things in here that we can use for that purpose? So Dr. Prescott, Dr. Pingle.
All right, thank you, Dr. Pierce, and good morning, everyone. Thank you to Dr. Cook as well for the warm welcome at Alcorn State University. Pleased to be here for the second time this year. Was really privileged to be here in February as part of the visits we did for this project. You all know me by now. My name is Sarah Pingle. I'm the Vice President of the National Center for Higher Ed Management Systems. And I'm really pleased to be here today with Dr. Brian Prescott. He and I will switch off throughout this presentation to keep it lively and engaging for all of you, to share more about the recommendation on the funding model work. As you all know, we have been at this task for some time now. Our team has been working very hard from our offices in Boulder, Colorado, and also on site in Mississippi. I think this is my 4th trip to Mississippi since we've been under contract on this one. to create a recommendation that we hope is actionable and helpful for these trustees to consider. And it is a recommendation. The trustees have some difficult decisions ahead of them, and we hope that what we've pulled together is supportive of that decision-making process for them. So we're nearing the end. Our contract wraps on June the 30th, so we're working on final finishing touches to the recommendation and our final deliverables to the trustees. Today, what Dr. Prescott and I will talk through is really content that we talked about with the Finance Committee yesterday as well, but at a higher level and really intended for a more public-facing audience today to keep a broader set of stakeholders updated on the status of the work. We're going to talk through how important performance is in the context of this model and how important funding is as a real fulcrum point for the trustees to ensure that they're setting strong signals for the institutions around performance and improvement. We're going to talk about the importance of foundational funding as a firm footing on which performance funding can be most successful. And then our recommendation is where we're going to weave both of those concepts together. How can you create a model that is on a firm foundational footing that also incentivizes performance? So with that, I will hand it over to Dr. Prescott to walk us through the performance model design, and then I will be back to talk through the foundational funding piece.
Thanks, everyone. And this is also my fourth time in Mississippi as part of this project. So I've come to appreciate the various different parts of the state that I've had the privilege to visit. I'll begin by saying that we have been at this work for a long time. You saw the timeline. Throughout that process, we've met with trustees on nearly every meeting that has occurred since we came under contract in November or December last year. And we've also been to all 8 of the campuses to do campus outreach and stakeholder engagement. We've spoken with members of the legislature as well as part of this project, and of course we've been paying very attention to the legislative session. So there's been, I think, ample opportunity for us to gather input as well as the data that you all provided either through IHL or in many cases we requested directly from the institutions, and I want to thank all of the people who provided that for their quick response and thorough response to those requests. If I could go back to, okay, good. Just as a starting point, the first thing we did was try to engage stakeholders around what are the objectives of a funding model approach that you all have in mind. We certainly come to this work with a great wealth of experience working in other states, but we wanted to hear from folks in Mississippi about what was important to them. And so you've seen this goal statement before, but it really grounds a lot of the work that we have done in terms of the development of the model. And so we want to be clear that we're trying to build an empirical, evidence-based model that the state can use that works well for all 8 institutions, that includes performance components that will encourage improvement in the service to students and communities. We also want the model to be aligned with statewide goals around educational attainment and workforce development. And we need to be mindful of the existing differences in institutional missions and also the kinds of just the very different ways that each of the 8 institutions serves its community and its students in the state. With that, we have spent a considerable amount of time in conversations with both the institutions and the trustees about the foundational funding component that Dr. Pingle mentioned just a moment ago. We have spent a lot of time as well on what the performance funding component will look like. And so I wanted to talk a little bit about that in concept as we build towards the recommendation. So what we have is a performance component that acknowledges that there are at least 2 important pieces of how it works out. One is that the amount of money that goes into the performance component matters, but so does the design. And if we get the design wrong, the amount of money will not matter, will not help achieving the state goals and so forth. So we've tried to be very careful about accounting for performance metrics that appropriately address the goals of the state and the differences in the way the institutions operate. Just as a bit of background, this is a depiction of where other states are in terms of the degree to which they rely on performance funding in the 4-year sectors of their own states. And the point here that's most important to make is that most of the states that are involved in providing money this way are providing relatively small amounts of money this way. That performance component exists on top of a base. Generally, that base in most of these states is a base plus funding model, much like the one that you all operate here for all of the dollars that go from IHL to the institutions, but these are supplemented by these performance components. There are a few that have much more heavy investments in performance funding, but even in those cases, the base is generally protected. So in states where there is performance funding, it's quite often just the new dollars that the legislature allocates to the institutions that go through that mechanism. And so because there needs to be for planning purposes for the institution, there needs to be some predictability to allow them to make commitments that will actually impact performance favorably. Worth noting is that this represents only 19 states. The rest of them in the four-year sector are still using mostly base plus activities and or maybe an enrollment-based formula. But by and large, states are increasingly coming to organizations like NCHEMS looking for ways to adapt their funding model approach to the new realities that are facing higher education around competition for students in a declining demographic environment, increasing public mistrust of higher education, the onset of new competitors, and other things that are sort of disrupting higher education generally. For the performance component that that is part of our recommendations, this is just a list of all of the various kinds of metrics that we gathered data for and modeled in our work. We didn't select all of these, and as you'll see, some of them we selected for the research universities and some for the comprehensive institutions, and others not. So those details will be forthcoming in our presentation. It's really important for us when we do this work that we anticipate and we hope that the trustees will act to accept and implement our recommendations, ideally as written. But ultimately what I'm hopeful for is that we don't repeat what happened the last time NCHEMS was in the state in 2012, when a model was created and a couple of years it was used for a year or two, and then it was abandoned again in favor of base plus. What we really want is a durable funding model that gives the trustees the ability to allocate funds to institutions according to its own priorities. At its heart, a funding model is a budgeting exercise, right, that has, just like the budgeting exercise any of you would do in your institutions or in whatever business you are, where you set priorities about what it is that you're doing on the basis of scarce resources. You're never going to have the amount of resources that you want, so you have to establish priorities and make decisions on the basis of that. We want to equip the trustees with the tools that will allow them to do that in alignment with the state priorities that they are obligated as part of their roles to represent, and in collaboration with conversations with the institutions and the legislature as well. But so there are some principles that we would put forward around the performance funding model particularly, but around the entire funding model, that are intended to be guideposts for when hard decisions have to be made about prioritization. And our hope is that these principles and others that you will come up with on your own will help make the funding approach more durable than what has existed in the past. So the first one is really that that for us, the performance expectation and component of this should really be focused on improvement. I think everyone would agree that while there are differences in the level of performance among each of the institutions in the IHL, all of them have room for improvement, and we want to incentivize improvement across the board as much as we possibly can. And so that improvement needs to be reflective of the differences in the institutional missions that exist between research universities and comprehensive institutions. Secondly, as I already stated, the design of the funding model is really as important as the amount of money that you put through it. Research suggests that there are perverse incentives that can happen if the design isn't right, and research also just suggests that that performance can happen with marginal dollars. So we need to be able to build a model that really pulls on those incentives in the right ways. And then finally, we think that the way that these two elements of the funding model recommendation we're making are mutually reinforcing. So some of the difficulties that exist in performance funding is ensuring that institutions that do show improvement are actually rewarded for that. There are designs that fail that test because when an institution shows improvement, but another institution improves on the same measure by more, the first institution suffers as a consequence. Secondly, we want to make sure that there's as much protection for the foundational component of the model as there can be, so that the institution isn't having to replace foundational dollars with performance dollars, therefore mitigating the impact of the performance funding. So we want to be clear that these should be mutually reinforcing elements. And so we've sort of, unlike many of the presentations we've made to date, we've sort of reverse ordered the presentation here. We talked a little bit about performance. Now we're going to go back into foundational funding and describe the recommendation that will happen, and then we'll go back and talk about the pieces of the performance model that have the detail in it. But one sits on top of the other, and they both work towards the statewide goals. So I'll invite Dr. Pingle back, and then I'll return one more time.
All right, thank you. Okay, so Brian kind of talked us through the first thread of the recommendation, which is the performance funding component, and that we want to make sure the design of the performance funding component has the most promise to actually reward improvement in performance that are taking place at each of the institutions. You can put a whole lot of money through an ineffective design and still be no better off than when you started, right? And you can also put a whole lot of money through an ineffective design on the basis of a foundation for each of the institutions that doesn't meet their minimum funding needs. And so this question of how to extract increased performance from institutions that may be starting from an inadequate funding base to start is one that we really wrestled with in the creation of this recommendation, which is what brings us to this idea of foundational funding. Foundational funding is essentially a concept that many states use and operate within their funding models, and it defines and prioritizes the state's role in meeting a minimum set of expenses for all of the public institutions that they operate. What, according to that state's values and funding capacities, are the most important things for the state to cover for each of its institutions? And on this slide, there's a list of a few things that could look like. I have an idea of what states should fund for higher education institutions that may or may not be the same as Dr. Prescott's, that may or may not be the same as an institutional president's or a legislator or a governor, right? There's a variety of things that we could consider as part of this idea of foundational funding. What we're advancing within the context of this project, maybe, where should I point this to? There we go. Is that there's a variety of different thresholds, right? And we're suggesting a prioritization within our recommendation that has at least 3 different thresholds. The first being the floor, which would include a minimum amount of funding, a very conservative amount of funding for institutional administration, and a conservative amount of funding for supporting the buildings that the state owns on each of these campuses. Further along down the spectrum of foundational funding, we can imagine a state approach that would add in funding for the institution to offer its programs. And then even further along down the spectrum, we can imagine states that offer funding in a more comprehensive manner that would cover updating and aligning the curricula to workforce needs and adding more funding to more fully fund the facility needs on each of the campuses. So this is a slide that we looked at in previous trustee meetings, but we wanted to refresh it here just to say that we're working with these different thresholds of foundational state funding, and NCHEMS has prioritized things at the floor, lean, and comprehensive levels for consideration. Really importantly, and then going back to the model objective statement that Dr. Prescott shared at the top, it's important to understand that at the floor level, we're really only saying that the state plays a role in opening the doors of an institution. And that happens by virtue of providing an administration for that campus and support for the physical campus facilities, right? Regardless of whether a student ever comes through the door, the state has decided there shall be an institution of higher learning here, and it needs a building and it needs an administration so that students can come and they can be served. But at the floor level, at that threshold for foundational funding, the state's really not playing a role in covering any of the costs that the institutions face to provide their programs. And one of the things that we heard in the stakeholder engagement, and then one of the things just conceptually that NCHEMS would also agree with, is that the state actually really does have a role to play in covering the cost of programs. Together with students shouldn't be paying full freight for their full program cost. The state, by virtue of this being a public institution, also plays a role. And so then when we get into the lien level, the state, and through our recommendation, would be covering 30% of conservative program cost estimates for the research institutions and 50% for the comprehensives. The rest of the cost of providing programs would come from other revenue sources that the institution would have access to, whether that's student tuition dollars, grants, scholarships, other things of that nature. So this brings us to the recommendation where we start to weave together these two complementary concepts of performance and foundational funding. I'll take us through the first piece of this, and then when we get into the performance allocation portion, Dr. Prescott will take us through those next parts. Essentially, what we've conceptualized is that foundational funding is the basis on which state support should rest and on which performance can be best incentivized. And there are multiple pathways to get from foundational funding into a robust performance funding environment. You can get there through a more floor foundational funding approach, a lean foundational funding approach, or a comprehensive foundational funding approach. No matter which of the three levels you choose, it's likely, and it's true, and what we found and what we'll see later, that some of the institutions just aren't funded at those levels right now. They're not funded at those levels yet. And so there's an approach that we're recommending here to begin to fill some of those gaps, and then all institutions would be eligible for performance funding on top of that. So essentially at the 30,000 foot level, there's several steps to the allocation model that we're recommending that the trustees consider. The first is that floor foundational funding is calculated for each of the institutions using the expenses that we include at the floor level. Determining based on that how much funding of the total amount given to the trustees from the legislature would be allocated towards filling foundational funding gaps, and how much of that would be allocated towards filling performance. That funding would then be allocated to filling foundational gaps in performance, and then the sum of those three components would be each institution's allocation: their foundational funding, any foundational gap funding they may be eligible for, and their performance funding. And so we'll go through each of these steps in a little bit more detail, just relatively quickly. So the floor foundational funding includes administrative and facilities expenses. This slide shares a little bit more about the math that we use to get there. Essentially, we use a national survey of research and comprehensive institutions across the nation that's done by the Federal Department of Education. We use what institutions report as their spending on academic and institutional support, and then we take a share of that, a very conservative share of that, to estimate a portion that the state of Mississippi could contribute towards covering administrative costs at each of the institutions. When we do that math, these are the resulting figures for each of the institutions. On top of the administrative share, we also add in funding for facilities. The way we do that is by looking at the square footage on each of the campuses that's dedicated to education and general purposes. So that means it excludes things like dorms, stadiums, things of that nature. We calculate a replacement value of that. So if the institution were to build that building again today, what would it cost them to do that? And we take a share of that to represent what it should cost each year to maintain that building. Following that math through, this is the facilities maintenance estimates that are produced for each of the institutions. And so to calculate that minimum floor level of state support, because the state owns the buildings, right, and the state supports the administration, it comes up with the number on the far right. This would be the sum total of foundational funding at the floor level that we calculate for each institution. And again, this doesn't include any state support towards the cost of providing programs, right? This is just the cost of maintaining the buildings and having an apparatus set up and ready to serve students. The next step in the formula is determining where the gaps occur. So if we've calculated in an apples-to-apples way across all 8 of the institutions that some administrative cost share and a buildings maintenance cost share, where have institutions been funded historically relative to those levels that we calculated? And so on the far, well, it's left for me, on the first column, I'll say, there's the 2026 appropriation that each of the institutions received, our estimated floor foundational funding cost total, and you can see there are 3 institutions that have deficits relative to meeting that floor, and those are Alcorn State, Mississippi State, and the University of Mississippi. Through this recommended model that the trustees can consider, that would suggest that these institutions are eligible for additional funding to begin to fill those gaps. The other institutions would remain at their prior year funding level. We also introduced the idea earlier of this lean foundational funding component, and you may have picked up a little bit that we struggled between what to recommend between the floor and lean levels, and that's because conceptually it makes sense not just to have a building and administration, but to have an institution that's actually serving students, and to have the state play a role in the provision of those programs for students. And so we wanted to include the lean foundational funding level here to illustrate that none of the 8 institutions have reached the lean foundational funding level. And this indicates to us issues with funding at all 8 of the institutions that the state could work towards solving. As a matter of prioritization, we're narrowing the foundational funding gap pool to those institutions that haven't reached the floor yet. But it could also be possible for the trustees to consider a recommendation or to make a recommendation that the institution should be funded at the lean level in order to make good on the model objective statement and then just the larger concept that the institution should be funded to serve students well. That would be a decision of the trustees. So using our example of last year's funding scenario, after awarding the prior year foundational funding for all of the institutions that had at least reached the floor level, there would be about $2.6 million that would remain. And through this recommendation, we're saying half of that should be allocated to filling foundational funding gaps for the 3 institutions that had gaps relative to the floor level, and that half of that should be allocated to performance funding. All 8 institutions, of course, would be eligible for the performance funding pool. So these are the 3 institutions that had gaps relative to meeting the floor. This table calculates their share of how large that gap is. And so that portion of the funding is allocated based on their share of the gap. And so you can see the allocations that would have been made if this model were in place this year to those 3 institutions. And so essentially out of that foundational funding floor, this is the same information just represented in a different way. About 54 cents of each of those dollars would go to the University of Mississippi, 38 cents to Mississippi State, and then a small share to Alcorn State University as well. Those institutions that have already reached or exceeded the floor level would not be eligible for funding from this particular pool. And so that takes us to the performance funding pool, which all institutions are eligible for, and Brian will walk us through that.
Thank you.
Yeah.
So you saw earlier the list of metrics that we looked at. One of the ideas behind performance funding is to limit the number of metrics to the minimum number that you need to really capture the essence of the kind of performance that the state wants to see out of its institutions. And so for the research tier, which includes Mississippi, Mississippi State, Jackson, and the University of Southern Mississippi, again, a decision that the trustees can make in terms of the way in which they organize the tiers, but that's how we did it. These are the metrics that we're using to award points for performance in the recommended model. And we are adjusting the metrics. Some of these metrics would be applicable in the research sector, some would be applicable would be applicable in the community or in the comprehensive sector, but there's not a perfect one-to-one match between the metrics that are there because there are key differences in the missions of those kinds of institutions. not going to spend a lot of time on this, but I will note that the way we're doing the calculations for all of these metrics is really the percentage change between the most recently available year of performance, which for our modeling was 2024 in most of these cases, relative to the average of the 3 prior years for each of the institutions. So you'll see, we'll show you more how that works more specifically. But for this slide, it's percentage change relative to prior performance. These are the metrics for the research sector where we've organized them into attainment metrics, progression metrics, which is important because that provides a much quicker view on terms of what kind of interventions the institution is doing. You're going to see results more quickly than if you have to wait for somebody to actually complete a degree. The next one is productivity, and that gets at efficiency as well. For the research institutions, their research volume is important for the state. Then we have new data from NSPARC, which is a center within the Mississippi State University that does state-level data work, SLDS, statewide longitudinal data work that captures earnings and employment in Mississippi of graduates. We've got some workforce measures over there, and then we've also got measures that are related to the audience that the different institutions serve. So that's the research university performance metrics that we're using. For the comprehensive sector, these are those, and the main differences are being whether or not the comprehensive university sector is being rewarded for any research or graduate or professional students, whereas the research sector was not being rewarded for, they were rewarded for those two, but not for 30 semester credit hour improvement or for the number of adult learners who are graduating. Those are also decisions we made in our modeling. They are ultimately decisions that the trustees would make in implementation of the recommendations. Once we have those percent change amounts, then we, for example, in this one metric, the percentage change in bachelor's degrees awarded, we look for improvements in the most current year relative to the prior 3 years, and award of points based on where they fall within these different threshold ranges. Another example of how this is actually working for the graduation rate measure, we actually are using, this is one difference, we're using percentage point difference rather than percent change difference. But as you can see, first off, there's good news here. 7 of the 8 institutions saw improvements, some of it pretty dramatic, in their measured graduation rate over 6 years between the cohort that started in 2018 and graduated in 2024 and the 3 prior cohorts. And so each of the institutions, with one exception, is getting points for improvement on this measure. And then this is a dense graph, but this shows how the points came out for each of the institutions, for each of the metrics. And you can see the ones that are dimmed in the research sector and the ones that are dimmed in the comprehensive sector are the measures that aren't being used in each of those respective sectors. There's a total of 50 points available to each institution in each of the sectors, and you can see how well they did based on the way in which the measures worked. As a consequence, the way we've modeled this, the total $1.3 million that would have been available in fiscal 27 through this mechanism would have generated another $255,000 for the University of Mississippi and the University of Southern Mississippi. And I'm not going to read these through, but you can see it's a proportional share of the available dollars. Again, the available dollars is determined by an approach that we just picked as 50 for meeting floor foundational funding obligations and 50% for performance. So the components of the total allocation, the whole thing, would be, so what you got in 2026 there was $440 million for the IHL to allocate. In 2027, there was $442.5 million for IHL to allocate. And you can see that if this model had been in place as with the parameters that we have identified, we would have there would have been an additional, floor money going to Alcorn, to University of Mississippi and Mississippi State, and then each of the institutions would have gotten a proportion of the performance dollars, leading to the sum of the first column and the second to last column reaching the final column on the right. And what that would have done was for all the new dollars, the $2.6 million that was available, that was over and above what was provided in 2026, 37% of it would have gone to the University of Mississippi, 26% to Mississippi State, and progressively smaller proportions to the other institutions. That is the way our recommendation is sorted out. As we close with our formal presentation, let me just remind folks a couple of things. When we are building this floor allocation, we are doing it under very conservative assumptions based on expenditures for institutions across the country. We are not looking just at Mississippi institutions and saying, just because they have an administration or a person in a particular role means that they always need that person. We're looking for ways to encourage them that the funding support that the state is providing is not, it's dependent on what institutions across the country do, not just what Mississippi does. Secondly, we fundamentally think that the institutions that are represented here by the 8 presidents and 1 delegate designate are fundamentally state assets for which it's the state's responsibility to ensure that they're owned by the state, they need to be maintained by the state. Those are responsibilities, and so we are assigning the responsibility for state support to the core components of the institution that represent the value of the asset. And then we also think, as we move toward lean funding, that there's a need to support some of the instructional components of the operation. When it comes to the amount of money that you saw, a lot of that was very modest. You know, there's only $2.6 million to go around. We made the decision in our modeling to say 50% of it should go to meeting floor needs and 50% to performance. That is a trustee decision, as is all of these decisions. But as you build this tool, to the degree that you accept this recommendation, trustees, and then you implement it, you will work towards being able to do more with that as over time. But you have the basis of being able to allocate more dollars on the basis of performance. And performance is not strictly tied only to the performance component. There's elements about FTE and enrollment and other things in the caps on the amount of money we're recognizing for foundational funding that will encourage greater efficient and more efficient operations in the administration of the institution as well. And so with that, and I'll just say that part of what we want you to think about and accept is less about the specifics of the dollar amounts that we're indicating here, and more about the way in which the tool offers resources and capability for the trustees to make recommendations and to allocate dollars within the realities that they face, of the budgetary realities they face that come from the state appropriation that's provided to them. With that, I think we are happy to entertain questions or whatever it is that you would like us to do from this point.
Any questions for in-terms representative? I think trustees have all heard it several times. I think we answered a lot of our questions so far. And Trustee Arrington?
I have one. When it comes to the performance metrics, I think it was on slide 12, there was a long list of things to choose from. Is there a guideline or a best practice on how many performance metrics are appropriate so that you don't have too few, but that you don't have too many? Is there a sweet spot there?
That's a great question. We settled on 10. I think that's about as high a number as you should choose. So 10 for the research sector and 10 for the comprehensive sector, with I think 8 shared between the two of them. I wouldn't have more than 10 or 12 at the top end.
Okay. Dr. Pingle, Dr. Prescott, I know it's been a whirlwind since this past winter. We thank you for this tremendous amount of work you guys have put in for this, hopefully helping us to develop a durable framework moving forward, as you said, that we'll have to tweak as we see fit in order to make the decision that's best for our system. So thank you for this tremendous amount of evidence-based work you've done to help us to be able to make this decision moving forward. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Next are consent agendas. Are there any items that need to be moved to a regular agenda for consideration? Hearing none, is there a motion to approve the consent agendas? Is there a second? Thank you. Any discussion? All in favor say aye. All opposed, nay. We got Trustee Rader's aye. The motion passes. Now we'll move forward with our regular agenda. Trustee Hubbard, if you would, please present the Academic Affairs regular agenda for us.
Thank you. Academic Affairs has 4 items on the regular agenda. The first item on the agenda is the status of accreditation for each nursing program in the state. The board will be asked to approve the accreditation statuses. Dr. Casey Presswood will present this information for the board's consideration.
Thank you, Trustee Hubbard. As the regulatory authority for accreditation of schools of nursing in the state of Mississippi, the Office of Academic and Student Affairs Nursing Education oversees the development, implementation, and evaluation of new and existing schools of nursing for community colleges, public and private institutions in the state. Deans and directors of schools of nursing submit an annual report for review to IHL Nursing Education. In addition, schools of nursing are required to be nationally accredited, and state site visits take place concurrently with the national accrediting team. The approval of accreditation of Mississippi nursing degree programs is provided as a handout to you. It is also item 1 on the Academic Affairs agenda. During the 25-26 academic year, 4 schools of nursing had a joint state and national accreditation site visit. Today, I'm presenting findings based on the annual report as well as accreditation site visits. Continuing accreditation for all programs is recommended for all but 3 schools of nursing. The remaining 3 programs are recommended for continuing accreditation with conditions, with the reason and condition listed as part of the agenda item. Condition requirements include the development of a performance improvement plan by June 30th and/or an evaluation follow-up report. Additional monitoring requirements have been placed on programs that have not met one or more state-specific and/or national requirement. Board staff recommends approval of these items.
You've heard the recommendation. I make a motion to approve this item.
There's been a motion to approve item number 1. Is there a second? Any discussion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, nay. Trustee Rader? Trustee Rader, if you're saying aye, we can't hear you. Okay. We have the numbers. Motion passes. So, Dr. Presswood, if you would please proceed.
Okay. The second item on the agenda is from Mississippi College and is the request for approval of Stage 2, qualifying for initial accreditation of a new professional nursing degree program and permission to admit students. Mississippi College completed the first stage in the process of establishing a new professional nursing degree program and received board approval at the February 19th, 2026 meeting. Their Stage 2 application, along with a self-study report and supporting documents, was submitted on February 23rd, 2026. The second stage includes verification of a qualified nursing education program director, qualified nursing faculty and staff, and developing the philosophy, mission, goals, expected program outcomes, curriculum, approved budget, organizational chart, admission, promotion, and graduation policies, a systematic plan for evaluation, adequate support services, approve clinical affiliation agreements, and fiscal, physical, technological, and learning resources. A state site visit team composed of representatives from the Accreditation Review and Evaluation Committee of the Mississippi Council of Deans and Directors of Schools of Nursing and the Director of Nursing Education made a 3-day site visit to review the graduate program on October 20th through 22nd, 2025, and the Director of Nursing Education made a follow-up on-site visit on March 26, 2026, to validate progress. It was determined that the criteria for Stage 2 have been satisfactorily met, and a recommendation of approval for Stage 2 allows the school to admit students and to progress to the last stage, which is qualifying for full accreditation. Stage 3 requires that a site visit be scheduled with board staff during the last semester of the first graduating class and in conjunction with their initial National Nursing Accreditation site visit. Board staff recommends approval of this item.
You've heard the recommendation. I make a motion to approve this item.
There's been a motion to approve item number 2. Is there a second?
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, nay. Trustee Rader?
Aye.
The motion passes. Dr. Presswood, please proceed.
Okay. The third item on the agenda is a request from Mississippi State University to add a new academic unit. Mississippi State requests the creation of the Department of Organizational Leadership and Professional Studies to be housed in the College of Professional and Continuing Studies. The proposed new academic unit will provide focused leadership and strategic direction for rapidly growing leadership and workforce development initiatives that serve our state and region's economic development needs. Currently, organizational leadership programs, workforce development initiatives, and industry partnerships within the College of Professional and Continuing Studies lack dedicated departmental structure and leadership. Due to the significant growth in these areas, dedicated administrative oversight is needed to maximize their impact and sustainability. The 5-year anticipated cost of implementation is $650,000. Degree programs to be offered within the proposed unit are the Bachelor of Applied Science in Organizational Leadership, Professional Studies, Public Management, Business Office Technology, the Bachelor of University Studies, the Master of Applied Sciences in Organizational Leadership, and the Applied Leadership Certificate and Engage VR Certificate at the post-baccalaureate level. Board staff recommends approval of these items.
You've heard the recommendation. I make a motion to approve this item.
There's been a motion to approve item number 3. Is there a second? Any discussion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, nay. Trustee Rader?
Aye.
The motion passes. Dr. Presswood, continue.
The fourth item on the agenda contains requests for new academic degree programs. Mississippi State University requests the creation of the Bachelor of Arts in Statistics and the Bachelor of Science in Statistics to be housed in the College of Arts and Sciences Department of Mathematics and Statistics. Both are 121-hour degree programs designed to provide students with a strong foundation in statistics, including statistical theory, data analysis methods, and methods to manage, interpret, and effectively communicate insights from complex data. Students pursuing a Bachelor of Arts degree typically do so because of their strong interest in the arts, humanities, and social sciences. The primary aim of the proposed BA program is to strengthen quantitative skills in ways that align with the current job market demands while allowing students to continue pursuing their interest in arts, humanities, social sciences, and other liberal arts disciplines. Students pursuing a Bachelor of Science degree are able to master a wide range of science courses, such as diving deep into biology, chemistry, and physics, while learning statistical methods. The proposed BS program will equip students with the analytical and problem-solving skills necessary for data-driven decision-making. Jackson State University offers a BS in statistics. Graduates from the BA and BS degrees in statistics will find strong employment opportunities in Mississippi, the Southeast region, and nationwide across sectors such as healthcare, finance, government, and technology. According to the U.S. Bureau of Labor Statistics, employment for statisticians is projected to grow by 9% from 2024 to 2034, faster than average. This increase represents about 2,700 new positions nationwide, reflecting the continuing expansion of data-driven decision-making in business, healthcare, technology, and government sectors. A new graduate from this program can anticipate a starting salary of $65,000 to $90,000. Mississippi State University requests the creation of the Bachelor of Science in Tourism and Destination Development to be housed in the College of Integrative Studies. This 120-hour interdisciplinary program is designed to develop future leaders in the tourism and service sector industries. Integrating expertise from multiple colleges, the program offers a broad understanding of visitor experience design, culture, destination operations, and tourism development. Students will gain essential skills relevant to the tourism industry, including visitor management, community tourism development, venue management, and digital marketing, with a unique focus on attracting, engaging, and meeting the needs of travelers while building community economies. In 2024, a statewide needs assessment was conducted for Mississippi's tourism industry, which revealed a consistent and urgent demand for talent with specialized industry-relevant skills. Stakeholders identified digital marketing and development, funding and resource development, marketing content creation, community and economic development, and event and venue management as the highest value competencies needed for organizational success. Survey respondents also emphasized the critical importance of foundational professional skills, citing customer service, communication, teamwork, marketing and sales, and problem solving as essential for workforce readiness. These findings align directly with an analysis of current tourism-related job postings, which most frequently require proficiency in customer service, communication, sales, and management. The University of Southern Mississippi has a BS and a BSBA in Hospitality and Tourism Management. Both fall under the 52.09 SIP category, which focuses on hospitality, administration, and management services. The proposed program for Mississippi State falls under 52.19, which has a focus on specialized sales, merchandising, and market operations. These positions carry a median advertised salary of $62,000, and nearly half require a bachelor's degree. The University of Mississippi Medical Center requests the creation of the Doctor of Philosophy in Cancer Biology and Therapeutics to be housed in the School of Graduate Studies in Health Sciences. This 60-hour program currently exists as a track within the biology PhD program, and UMC seeks to make it a standalone degree program. This program prepares independent and productive biomedical research scientists through coursework, laboratory research, didactic instruction, laboratory practicums, and involvement in active research projects. According to the U.S. Cancer Statistics, a combined cancer registry database collected by the Centers for Disease Control, 1.8 million new cancer cases were reported in 22, and 613 of those people died of cancer in 2023. In Mississippi, 17,000 new cases and 6,200 deaths were reported, placing the state in the highest percentile of cancer-related deaths in the country. Thus, there is a growing need for a better understanding of the factors contributing to these elevated rates, such as cancer genetics and epigenetics, cancer cell behavior and fate, tumor body interactions, cancer biomarkers, and the development of new, innovative, and direct therapeutics. About 8,900 openings for medical scientists are projected each year on average over the decade. Many of those openings are expected to result from the need to replace workers who transfer to different occupations or exit the workforce. The PhD in Cancer Biology and Therapeutics aims to train medical science to address these issues to lower the rate of cancer-related deaths in the state of Mississippi. There are no other institutions in the state offering similar degree programs. In 2024, the median pay for a medical scientist with a doctoral or professional degree was $100,000 per year, which is an hourly rate of $48 per hour. Board staff recommends approval of this item.
You've heard the recommendation. I make a motion to approve this item.
There's been a motion to approve item number 4. Is there a second? Any discussion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, nay. Trustee Rader?
Aye.
And the motion passes. Trustee Hubbard,
This
think that-
concludes academic affairs regular agenda.
okay, thank you, Trustee Hubbard and Dr. Presswood. We'll move on to the finance and budget portion. Trustee Stevenson, please present the finance and budget regular agenda items, please.
Thank you, President Cunningham. We have 2 items on the regular agenda today. The first, a request to approve a property insurance agreement for the IHL system, and second, a request to approve a cyber liability insurance agreement for the IHL system. I call on Dr. Pierce to discuss the specifics of these items.
Thank you. Item number 1 is a request from the system to renew the property insurance for a 1-year term with affiliated FM. Jeff Estes from Arthur J. Gallagher served as our broker in this renewal, and so he will give you an update of the market and the contract that will be before you.
We have a few recusals.
Okay. Let the record reflect that Trustees Martin and Ogletree are recusing themselves from item number 1, and Trustee Martin is also recusing himself from item number 2 on the finance and budget regular agenda. Gentlemen, if you'll please leave the room, someone will let you know when to return.
Thanks, Board. I'll try to be brief if I go through this. I've spoken to this board several times, and it's nice to kind of be able to give some good news for once. It's been a difficult few years to be a property insurance broker, and we are starting to see some relief. Before I go into kind of the state of the insurance market, I do want to commend the risk management staff. John, is, from the CFO standpoint, to David Buford and Rod today, we've been working closely with Brad Rowland, and we've really done a lot of work over the last 2 or 3 years to coordinate different loss control and engineer and try to figure out how to prevent a lot of these losses. A lot of the local facility managers at each university have been involved, and that's really helped us be able to negotiate better rates as we move forward. I'm briefly going to talk about the state of the property insurance market. It is softening. When you look at a soft insurance market, think of a bull market or a bear market for the stock market. There's hard markets and soft markets in insurance. As a buyer of insurance, you want a soft market because rates are getting better. We started entering into a soft market last year, and from a large property standpoint, which IHL would definitely be a larger property, we're in a very softening market. That has been led by what we call the non-admitted insurance market. Think London, Bermuda, excess and surplus lines markets. They've been improving both pricing and terms and conditions. I want to put this slide up there. This is what kind of an excess and surplus program would look like. It's not what we're recommending to IHL, but you have traditionally had a partnership with FM Insurance Company where one company writes the entire property schedule for the state. A lot of big property schedules are shared in the shared and layered. What it would look like if we were ever to go to this, you would have a company give 5% of a layer, 10% of a layer, 15% of a layer, and it enables a lot of capital to participate, but it helps. We're going to increase the limit to $1 billion this year. It spreads a large loss around a lot more people, so it's a way for us to buy insurance and get some more competitive rates. It's not what we're recommending, but it's something you could do in future years, so we wanted to put that slide up there. The State of FM Insurance Company, that's been the partner for IHL since inception. They've had a really good year. You can see their combined ratio was 72%. One thing I really like about FM's leadership is they're not ignoring the fact that the market is softening. they were very open to talk about what do we need to do from a pricing, terms and conditions standpoint to keep the account. And they were very aggressive in the initial discussion, so that was good to see. But they do, I want to point out that 9 out of the largest 10 losses have occurred in the United States, and half of the losses for FM are really severe convective storm, tornado, and wind, which is a big part of what we have here in Mississippi, and so they do pay close attention to that. And then Winter Storm Fern was a $200 million loss for them. I bring that up because it's also a significant loss for IHL. We've had quite a large freeze loss earlier this year. From an exposure standpoint, I won't spend a lot of time on this. We trended the values not probably enough, but we were able to negotiate a 1% trend for inflation. That increased the value from like $15.1 billion to $15.4 billion, about 2% overall when you took kind of the new additions for the year. We still will keep blanket coverage, which means if we had some sort of insurance to value problem, the blanket would apply with the $1 billion limit, so it's positive from that standpoint. Our 5-year loss summary for this program is 43%. I should have highlighted the part that says the 5-year loss ratio of 43%. We are going to have a significant multi-million-dollar loss in the current year with the freeze loss. We just don't know what that number is going to be. We've got a significant loss at Ole Miss. We've got some losses at Mississippi Valley State, Delta State, and Alcorn State, and I'll talk a little bit about that more in a minute, but the loss ratio is not hard to determine right now because we're really trying to figure out what the current loss is. We did, for the first time, really get a competitive offer from the layered and shared program. They provided a program that was more than 100% filled. If you go back to that slide that I showed, we were at 130%, 150% in a lot of those layers. And so when you do that, you're able to take the lowest pricing for the layer. They also provided us quotes with lower wind and hail deductibles to 2% and also lower water damage deductibles, and we were able to use that to kind of leverage with our other markets. So in summary, where are we with FM renewal quote? They gave us a 10% rate reduction. They also changed the water damage deductible. If you remember the last couple of years, I've told us our water damage deductible has been higher than it needed to be. It was $2.25 million per university. There was a reason for that because of our claims history. We were able to lower that back down to $1 million per university, which is more in line with what entities your size have. And then we were also able to reduce the wind and hail deductible from 3% per affected buildings to 2% per affected buildings, which is also a big improvement for the program. And we increased the total limit that we have insured from $750 million to $1 billion per occurrence. And so all that we view as positive. FM also gave us a renewal rate agreement, which basically says if the loss ratio does not exceed 50%, they will reduce the rate next year 5%. Why I think that's important is we were also able to negotiate the freeze event as part of Winter Storm Fern will not be part of that calculation. And so we know we have a $7 million loss already on the books, and they've agreed to take the time frame for our calculation for our rate decrease after that event. And so that seemed like something that we really needed to consider. And then the last slide just shows, hold up, I'm not moving this correctly. That shows kind of what I went through on the renewal summary. That's the rate guarantee. And then this is just the overall cost decrease. The FM affiliated part of the program was down 9% when you took in the addition of the total insured values. I want to bring up two other things. Mississippi State University and Southern Miss University buy a separate policy for all their properties located in the lower 6 counties of Mississippi. Southern Miss is by far the largest of those two programs. We were able to give them several options to review. We met with them, and they've ultimately chosen to purchase
They've increased their limit from 40 million per occurrence to 60 million per occurrence, and we reduced their wind and hail deductible from 3% to 2%, and the premium still was reduced by 11%. So you can see that they're paying $1,694,000 on the current policy year. I can kind of tell you what the market's done in the last couple of years. 2 years ago, they were paying like $2.9 million for a $40 million limit. So they've seen a big improvement on their program. Mississippi State was able to receive a 9% reduction. Their wind deductible reduced from 5% to 3%. And so they also got a benefit in wind deductible. And so overall, if you look at the column at the very bottom on the grand total, we've saved $1,058,000, which was a 10% rate increase for the current term. Any questions?
I have a question. On slide 5, you showed the matrix that you said that we could potentially syndicate the coverage. You said it's something we need to think about now, but you're not recommending it. When does it go from something we need to think about to something that's actionable?
It was close this year.
Or what drives that decision, I guess?
Just price. I mean, so when we looked at it, one, if there's a disadvantage to the layered and shared program, you have to pay surplus lines taxes, which is a state law because it's non-admitted. I'm going to give a rough estimate. The surplus lines tax piece of that was about $850,000. And so that was really one of the main things that pushed that price past the FM quote, was actually the surplus lines tax. So we were within $400,000 or $500,000 of pricing this year, where in years past we'd probably been $3 or $4 million away. So we were able to go through the entire process where we sat down and reviewed 2 separate quotes, but it didn't make sense to move based on pricing.
Thank you.
Legal staff has reviewed this agreement for compliance with applicable law and finds it to be acceptable, and board staff recommends approval.
You have heard the recommendation of board staff. I'm making a motion to approve item number 1.
There's been a motion to approve item number 1. Is there a second? Any discussion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, nay. Trustee Rader?
Aye.
Trustee Clark?
Aye.
The motion passes. Bridget, if you would, please ask Trustee Ogletree to return. Okay, Trustee Stevenson, please proceed.
Dr. Pierce.
Thank you. Item number 2 is a request from the system to approve a cyber liability insurance policy with Homeland Insurance Company of New York and Indian Harbor Insurance Company. Homeland will provide the primary coverage, and Indian Harbor will provide excess coverage. Cyber liability insurance will cover the various cyber-related losses, including third-party liability, first-party loss, costs related to investigation and mitigation, and costs related to providing legally required notifications to persons potentially affected by a cyber incident. The purchase also includes cyber services and access to panel contractors through Resilience. The primary policy with Homeland shares $10 million in limits, with universities having sub-limits. The University of Mississippi Medical Center, the University of Mississippi, Mississippi State University, and the University of Southern Mississippi will have $4 million in sub-limits, and the other universities, as well as the board office, will have $2 million in limits. Business interruption coverage goes to the full primary limits. The incident response coverage includes forensic, legal, public relations, notifications, and credit monitoring services, as well as a network of service providers available through Resilience. The deductible is $100,000 per occurrence. UMMC's excess policy provides them with additional $10 million in limits, bringing their total available coverage limits to $14 million. The other universities have multiple options to purchase excess limits if they decide to do so as a group. IHL conducted an RFP in 2026. 6 brokers were assigned to 23 markets. Multiple competitive quotes were received and evaluated from 29 options from 11 insurers. The recommended option is the best and lowest in terms of premium, coverage limits, and service. The Alliant quote with Homeland and Indian Harbor were the only ones with excess limit options to increase limits over the primary $10 million. The quote also provided the opportunity for UMMC to purchase the additional dedicated limit over $10 million to $14 million, and as well as the options for the other universities. Legal staff has reviewed this item for compliance and applicable law, and board staff recommends it for approval.
You have heard the recommendation from board staff. I make a motion to approve item number 2.
There's been a motion to approve item number 2. Is there a second?
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, nay. Trustee Rader?
Aye.
Trustee Clark?
Aye.
Motion passes.
That concludes the finance and budget agenda.
Okay. Wait for Trustee Martin to return. Thank you, Trustee Stevenson and Dr. Pierce. All right. Next is a legal regular agenda, which I'll present in Trustee Heidelberg's absence. Let the record reflect that Trustee Clark is recusing himself from item number 1 on the legal regular agenda. And Trustee Clark, we will have you placed in the Zoom waiting room, and we'll let you back in when we're done. Okay. There's one item on the legal regular agenda. It is a request from the University of Mississippi for approval of a legal services agreement with the law firm of Butler Snow. The term of this agreement is 3 years with a maximum expenditure amount of $350,000 annually. This agreement has been reviewed by IHL staff and the Office of the Attorney General, and board staff recommends approval of this item. Trustees, you've heard the board staff's recommendation. Is there a motion to approve item number 1? Okay, is there a second? Second. Thank you. Any discussion? All in favor say aye. All opposed, nay. Trustee Rader?
Aye.
Trustee Clark is in the Zoom waiting room, so that motion passes. Bridget, if you'll let Trustee Clark back in. Okay, this concludes the legal regular agenda. On to the administrative policy. Dr. Rankins, please present the administrative policy regular agenda items.
Thank you, President Cunningham. Before I get started, I would like to acknowledge Noah Buford, who is the son of David Buford, who is on our staff in risk management, who worked hard on the insurance items that you just approved. Noah was in a serious car accident a few days ago. He's at UMC now being treated, and I ask that we all keep Noah and David's entire family in our prayers. Trustees, the first item is a request for approval of President Cunningham's committee chair appointments. All trustees are members of these committees, and this item is being presented for your consideration.
Is there a motion to approve item number 1?
So moved.
Is there a second? Any discussion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, nay. Trustee Rader?
Aye.
And Trustee Clark?
Aye.
The motion passes. Dr. Rankins, please proceed.
Item number 2 is a request to approve the reappointment of Trustee Teresa Hubbard to the Mississippi Post-Secondary Education Financial Assistance Board for the 4-year term beginning July 1, 2026 through June 30th, 2030. The Post-Secondary Board administers all state-supported student financial aid programs like the Mississippi Resident Tuition Assistance Grant and the Mississippi Eminent Scholars Grant. The IHL Board is authorized by statute to appoint 1 trustee from the IHL Board and 1 institutional representative. This reappointment is presented for your consideration.
Is there a motion to approve item number 2? Is there a second?
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, nay. Trustee Rader?
Aye.
Trustee Clark?
Aye.
The motion passes.
President Cunningham, this concludes the administration policy regular agenda.
Thank you, Dr. Rankins. We will proceed with the information agendas. Is there anything to present, Dr. Rankins?
Are there any questions regarding items on the information agenda? If none, thank you, President Cunningham.
Thank you, Dr. Rankins. Are there any additional agenda items to be considered? Is there any other business to discuss? There being none, the next meeting scheduled will be on June 18th, 2026. Is there a motion to close the meeting to determine the need for an executive session? Is there a second? Thank you. Any discussion? All in favor say aye. All opposed, nay. Trustee Rader?
Aye.
Trustee Clark?
Aye.
The motion passes. Other than the IHL trustees and IHL staff, anyone not needed for executive session should leave the room or disconnect. Visitors are welcome to wait in the hallway. Trustees, please give us a minute to make sure the appropriate participants are connected. Thank you.